The North American Society for the Psychology of Sport and Physical Activity, NASPSPA, will celebrate its 50th anniversary in June of 2017. As part of the celebrations, it was decided that we would interview the previous distinguished scholars. My name is Penny McCullough, and today I will be chatting with Dr. Robert Christina. Through 2016, NASPSPA has named 24 distinguished scholars. Dr. Christina was named a distinguished scholar in 2012. This interview is being conducted in March of 2017. Good afternoon, Dr. Christina. How are you today?
I'm doing very well, and good afternoon to you as well.
Thank you. So let's get started here. Dr. Christina, please tell us a little bit about your academic background.
Well, I got my undergraduate degree, bachelor's degree at Ithaca College, and went on right away to get my master's degree at the University of Maryland. And then I went out and taught and coached for about 4 years before going back for my PhD at the University of Maryland. My emphasis in my PhD was motor control and learning, which was a bit of a stretch back then because it essentially didn't really exist as a field. So I took a lot of psychology, exercise physiology, measurement and statistics. And in fact, I worked in the exercise physiology lab for 2 years as a lab assistant to help pay my way through grad school at the time. And that's about it for the academic side of things.
Okay, and when did you decide, or how did you decide to pursue a doctoral degree? And then how did you decide what university you go to? And tell us a little bit about your mentor.
Yeah, I must have been around 1966 when I had already taught from 63 on up to 66. And I taught in high school for a couple of years, and I taught and coached in college for a couple of years at junior college. And wasn't happy at all with what I was doing. I thought there was more. I was always curious about why we were doing things that we were doing, and wanted to know, I guess, more answers to what it was that we were doing. So having done my master's degree at Maryland, I was familiar with the university, and also knew that the faculty was quite good, and they had a strong graduate program. So I selected the university just based on previous experience. And unbeknownst to me at the time, I didn't realize that Dick Schmidt had just graduated. And that was his first job, and I didn't even know who he was. I was heading back there to work in the area of exercise physiology and biomechanics. So I started out with Dave Clark in ex-phys, and while I was there that first year, I found out that my passion was more for motor control and learning than it was for exercise physiology. So I switched to Dick Schmidt during that first year that I was there. And of course, Dick just graduated from the University of Illinois, and it was a really good relationship, and it all worked out great. You know the rest of the story, I think.
I know little bits of it at least, yes. And tell us what do you recall as your first exposure, interest in, or involvement in research? What got you going in that direction?
Yeah, well, it was both my junior and senior year at Ithaca College. I had a professor in kinesiology, anatomy, and physiology who pulled me aside one day and said, "Hey, I need some help on this research project I'm doing. Do you mind helping?" And I said, "Well, I don't know anything about that. I was there to basically learn how to be a PE teacher and like playing baseball, and that's where I was heading." So he introduced me to some data collection. He introduced me to some measurement, statistics. I was doing reliability checks, correlational analysis, and doing it by hand back then. By the way, we didn't have hand calculators or computers or whatever back then. So it was kind of grunt work, but I followed through with it, and he showed me, the beginning. He introduced me to it as from the beginning of the project to the end, and I saw it come through, and it didn't dawn on me at that point in time how much I would develop passion for this kind of work, but that was the first introduction, and it sort of whet my appetite for research in the field.
That's great. It sounds similar to my exposure when I was an undergraduate student with you at Brockport.
Yeah, probably
so
about the same.
So tell us a little bit about your doctoral dissertation.
Well, the title was a bit esoteric. It was proprioception as a basis for the anticipatory timing of motor responses, and that's a mouthful. Essentially, I was trying to determine the extent to which movement-produced feedback could serve as a possible mechanism for perceptual anticipation and timing of motor responses. I was very much into. I was influenced greatly by Jack Adams, and my dissertation really came off of some of his earlier work. And I was very, very much interested in underlying mechanisms at that time. I don't know whether that was the influence of my physiology background or what, but anyway, it drove me in that direction, and I think Adams had a profound influence on me, as did my advisor, Dick Schmidt.
Great, thank you. So, Dr. Christina, your distinction of becoming a Distinguished Scholar of NASPA recognizes your long-standing contributions in the areas represented by your research. We'd now like to take a few minutes to chat with you about some of your scholarly endeavors. So, you've mentioned briefly, but go ahead and tell us what sort of research interest did you have early on, and did you continue to pursue that line? And if you changed your line of research, tell us a little bit about how that happened.
I pretty much stayed the course. I was really interested more in applied research when I started out, but having gone through the program at Maryland, the underlying mechanism thing really stuck with me. So I guess I had a foot in each camp. I was very much interested in the basic research, but I was also, because of my coaching, teaching background prior to that, and just my interests, I also was interested in applied research. So I had a foot in each camp, which was a bit of a problem back in the late 60s and early 70s, because there was not a lot of outlets for applied research. So if you're going to be a professor at some university, of course, you've got to have refereed publications, and in the applied field, there wasn't a whole lot there. It wasn't respected. Applied research was not respected during that time. So I did more basic research just to survive on the one hand, but also had a keen interest in it as well. And the journal outlets were just not plentiful. In fact, while I was at the University of Maryland, or just had left in '69, Dick Schmidt had just started the Journal of Motor Behavior, and I remember him putting that journal together and the efforts that went into that. That would offer another outlet, for a publication outlet for us. The Research Quarterly at that time was not a very good outlet, because it wasn't a highly respected journal at that time. So you essentially had to go publish in parent disciplines like experimental psychology, Journal of Experimental Psychology, and so on. So basic and applied research, and of course my major interest was always in learning and control of movements, motor skills, and of course sports skills and other kind of applied skills as well.
Great, thank you. So tell us a little bit about the basic research questions or underlying issues behind your research, and what have you tried to learn?
Yeah, I think, the broad question for me was how people come to control and learn motor skills and movements. I mean, that's the overarching question that I always worked, the framework within which I worked. The second was, of course, what factors and conditions influence that control and learning, factors such as feedback, practice, and so on. So I always stayed within those two questions, and it allowed me to do not only basic research, but extend it to applied research as well.
Okay, now I'd like you to think back on all the research you've done over the years, and tell us a little bit about a research project that you were particularly interested in, you feel proud of, or you maybe feel made an impact on the field. And then also, were there other researchers that had a profound influence on you?
I think I don't have any one piece of research that stands out for me right now, but I think the 15 or 17 or I don't know how many years we did research on the reaction time analysis of program control of rapid movements, where we not only used reaction time, but then we fractionated the reaction time. And it all came off of Henry's memory drum theory on the one hand, and on the other hand, it was very timely because information theory or information processing theory had a stimulus identification, stimulus response selection, then response programming. And so that response programming part that would program the output connected very nicely with what Henry did. And I became very interested in it. And over the years, Henry and I communicated back and forth. And I had a number of great graduate students who followed that line as well. And so it went on for about 15, 16, 17 years. I don't know exactly right now. But we summed it up at the McCloy lecture. I was invited to give the McCloy lecture in 1991, and I presented that line of research. And it was published in the RQES, Research Quarterly for Exercise Sport, in 1992. And so I think I'm very proud of that because it was a line of research that we stayed with for a long time, and we do think that we uncovered some things that were not known before. And I'd like to add one other thing, which were position papers more so than research. There were position papers about research in motor control and learning. They were given around 1986. The first one was given at the Gatorade Symposium for Exercise Sciences that Jim Skinner and organized at Arizona State University. And I raised the question, whatever happened to applied research in motor learning? And in that, I put forth some arguments that suggested we were being misled and there was a time to change the direction that we were moving. And then I followed up and extended that at the Academy meeting, American Academy of Physical Education at the time, in 1986 and 7, and it was published in the Academy papers in 87. And I just extended that work and talked about future lines of research and what was going on, and essentially talked about 3 levels of research: basic research, research at level 2, which was really a combination of basic and applied, but you're using skills and tasks that reflected what went on in the real world, and then of course straight applied research where there wasn't any notion of theory, you're just trying to solve practical problems. The basic issue here was that we were led to believe by a number of distinguished scholars that basic research had to come first, and you shouldn't be doing applied research until the basic research had all the answers. And that my argument was that is false. That basic researchers and basic research can learn from applied research just as applied research can learn from basic research. And so that was it, and I put forth a framework and an argument, and I think I'm as proud of that those 2 position papers as anything else.
Well, I must add, I really enjoyed those papers, which I read, and in fact, they served as the basis for my presidential address at the Association for Applied Sport Psychology, so I very much appreciated those papers. So you've been a long-standing member of NASPA. Tell us a little bit about your involvement with NASPA.
Yeah, well, I got introduced to NASPA when they held it in Washington, D.C., the international, whatever, NASPA sponsored the International Sports Psychology meeting. And I was there as a graduate student at the time, so I did go down to the meeting. But, of course, I was not a member of NASPA. NASPA was actually put together, as you know, to help host this International Sports Psychology conference. And I've been involved for 30-plus years. I was a past president, I think, in 79 and 80. I've been on the executive board. I've helped run at least 2 conferences, or one of the early ones at Penn State with Dorothy Harris and Dan Landers. And then when I was, I think, past president, I think I helped the Trois de Riviere one up in Canada, a big international one of which NASPSPA was a part. And in the early days, there was we tried to put out a proceedings, and we had to edit it. So I and Dan Landers edited a number of proceedings at the time of the Texas Conference, the Ithaca College Conference, the Penn State Conference. So, and of course, over the years, I was involved in a lot of decisions that hopefully helped, along with many others, that hopefully helped shape NASPSPA into what it is today. I loved the organization when I was there. It was a scientific organization whose main mission was science and research, and it was great for all of my students and other students of other faculty members. It serves a great purpose, and they've grown way beyond my expectation of a just small group of scientists getting together and talking about motor learning and development in sports psychology. And I couldn't be more proud of where NASPSPA is right now.
Well, thank you for your contributions over the years. Tell us a little bit, when you were named Distinguished Scholar, kind of what did that mean to you?
Well, yeah, first of all, there is no higher honor. It's a public recognition, by my peers of the importance of the body of scholarly work that I produced during my career. And whenever you do something, in this case research or scholarly work and writing, and your peers over a long period of time, and your peers judge that as being worthy of a Distinguished Scholar Award by the society that I hold very close to my heart, there is no higher honor. So that's the simplest and best way that I can express my feelings and what it meant to me.
That's great. Thank you. So do you have any last thoughts you'd like to share with us for future advice for young scholars, or anything else you'd like to share?
Well, I hesitate giving advice to young scholars. They know more than I do at this point in time, and probably knew more than I did way back when I was in my prime. But I just want to say something about retiring. I retired in 2001 from professional work and so on, but I continued research. It's about passion and research. I mean, I love motor control and learning, and I liked research very much and trying to find answers to questions. That was my passion. So, I have a love for the game of golf, which I don't play very much anymore because my ailing back won't allow it. But I went into the golf industry because I thought, well, here's a place that I can apply all of the skills that I have, and I'm looking at one of the most complex skills there is to study. And so I was able to put those two together, working out of Pinehurst primarily, and it's been an unbelievable ride. Since 2001 to 2017, we've published over 40 plus research-based papers on learning in golf and the factors that affect performance in golf. I'm involved with Golf Magazine. I've been with them since 2003. I work with the top 100 teachers in America in golf for Golf Magazine, and I'm on the steering committee of the World Scientific Congress of Golf, which I've been on for a number of years. So, retirement isn't death, and I guess it's a sign to me that what I was doing all the years that I got paid for, and I'm getting less paid these days, was something that was a passion for me, and I love doing it, and I'm still doing it today. So follow your passion. If it's research for young scholars, if it's research in whatever field it is, follow it, and you'll wake up every day and be anxious to move on with the day. It won't feel like work. It'll feel like play. And the nice part about it is, here we are, you're talking to me, and I've had the opportunity to follow my passion with all that work and meet great people like yourself and all the students and other faculty who I came in touch with, and it hasn't been work at all. It's been like play. So to be honored in such a way, to have you interview me, to receive the Distinguished Scholar Award, was icing on the cake. You actually rewarded me for doing something that I love doing anyway. So thank you.
Oh, God, that's absolutely fabulous. One last little question. Did all of your knowledge about learning and control of skills help your own golf game?
I think it probably interfered with my golf game as I had too much to think about.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today, and look forward to seeing you at the up-and-coming meeting in San Diego.
No,
Have a great day.
You too.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care.